Good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
So, Allan McLennan.
I'm Koen van Benschop, Deutsche Telekom.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
I
you.
understand, the areas that you've been focusing on in developing very much a very compelling offering when it comes to low latency and the delivery of content, live content particularly, has been somewhat revolutionary. And so I'd like you to kind of do a little quick overview of what you just presented, and then I've got some questions we can just dive into.
Okay, no problem whatsoever. So we've been looking at latency quite a bit recently. So up until like a couple of years ago, 2 years ago roughly, latency was like never really much of a subject. And it was totally acceptable to have up to 40 seconds plus latency on an end-to-end delivery, which in fiction doesn't have any relevance whatsoever. But it's OTT delivery as such has now moved where it is really readily available on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're on the big screen, you're basically being compared to other delivery chains like satellite and cable TV.
Absolutely.
And those typically are a lot faster. So people end up watching live sports content and basically you see a goal on TV.
Exactly.
But you already know it's coming because basically your neighbors are shouting 30 seconds, 40 seconds before you are. And on the big screen, this is just not an option anymore. People will not want to go for a big screen OTT delivery solution if they're like 40 seconds behind the neighbors. Mm-hmm. There is some very interesting stuff going on related to CMAF delivery, where you can really kick the last bit out of the latency and come to a point where there is no real latency involved anymore. What we have been looking at is like how much time would it actually take us to get this in front of our customers with the entire ecosystem impact that results from moving to CMAF. So what I presented before is, let's say, an intermediate kind of an approach, where we say before the Euro Football 2020 Championships, we can have this ready to roll. And we can achieve decent latency. It's not super good, but we can achieve decent latency by which we will be measured to basically overcome the next 1 to 2 years. And then afterwards, we can go one step further to CMAF, which you'll be talking to Stefan Arbanovsky about later on.
Part of what our discussion is really based on is exactly what you just said, 1, 2 years. 3 years out. The fact of it is right now, even coming to this point, is that the audience is starting to demand it, to stay with the service that they're having, to be able to offer an overall model of programming with an OTT service is to have some sort of a semblance of live capabilities, whether it's live news or live events or live sporting events. And you're absolutely right, the delay is never good if the pub down the street is cheering and crazy and you're like, what happened? But we're getting to a point where this is an acceptable delay, and that's only going to get better as the technology comes forth over the course of the next couple of years. 3 years out, what do you see television like in 3 years from now if we're able to meet that being a comparable delivery platform as linear and satellite? Do you see a shift in viewership moving more towards OTT?
Yes, I think on a long term, there is a few other 3 years for me is a long term. There is a few other driving factors. In 3 years from now, let's say live TV consumption as such will be less than today, but sports is becoming more and more relevant in a percentage kind of a way of looking at it. In 3 years from now, I think the total latency towards the end viewer will be in a very acceptable domain of 2 to 4 seconds, maybe compared to other delivery chains. And in the time to come after that, I think they will get closer and closer to, let's say, the other ways of distributing content. 3 years from now, everybody should be able to do a 4-second latency or less.
That's a very interesting point. It's a really good stake in the ground too for 4-second latency. The fact of it is that what the viewers want, they're going to drive it if the interest is there, and you're going to be able to build a model around that versus like sponsorship for live programming or ad-based or whatever it might be. Yeah, there'll be that capability of being able to deliver that. The fact of it is that it comes down to what the audience wants, we'll deliver as an industry. And in 1 or 2 years, this is going to be a really key period in building out that offering. Right? It's like starting to build now. By the time the audience gets familiar with, yes, they're there, and they buy into the service saying that this is really close. I can now watch this on any device wherever I go, which, let's face it, on linear broadcast or a cable or satellite, you can't find it on your phone. Whereas what you're designing and developing right now, you're going to be able to capture that audience. So let's talk about that. Competition, co-opetition, embracing the competitors out in the marketplace. Are you starting to see passing along that knowledge set to the market to help them come and raise up into the areas of your expertise?
There might be, let's say, some groundbreaking kind of stuff that would not be public knowledge, but I think from a technology perspective, you need to share a lot of information to basically drive the entire market. There's no point in keeping all your secrets to yourself, because then whatever you do will be like an isolated kind of a thing. And we're moving more and more into a commodity, standardized kind of way of doing things. And for that, you need a broader acceptance within a market. So
yes.
You can't build your rocket science just for yourself and keep it to yourself, because you will just not manage to do it all the way.
That's fantastic. That's a very healthy perspective to be able to move the industry forward and embrace what your overall offering is going to be.
Right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Very nice conversation.
Thank you.